Hi, it is Toby Martini with Video Express Training. Today we're talking about interviewing. I have a few tips that will help you when you interview somebody. You probably should consider doing an interview style video sometimes because it's helpful for you in many ways. It could be that you interview somebody who's a leader in your industry. That raises your elevation. You get to be known as somebody in the same breath as that other person. But also it could be just because somebody you like and respect and you want to honor them, you want to share their story. At some point you're going to want to do some sort of an interview, and I hope these tips will help you. Okay, so tip one is be prepared. Just like a Boy Scout, you should prepare before you go do the work. In this case, it's do your research. Make sure you know everything there is to know about the person. That's common knowledge. You don't want to come across stupid. You don't want to say some question that everybody already knows the answer to, right? So do your research first, but also leave room to be spontaneous, because you never know where a conversation might go, and you want to allow it to go there, because some of the best answers, some of the best stories come from when you've gone down the rabbit hole a little bit. So be prepared so you don't step in it. Be prepared so you don't do something completely wrong, but then be spontaneous enough to know that the conversation can have a life of its own. You need to bring your excitement to an interview as well, because when you interview someone, it could come across deadpan. It could come across as an attack if you aren't smiling, if you don't have a good energy. So make sure that you bring even more energy than you would to a regular video. And that usually has an effect on the other person and makes them a little bit more exciting and interesting as well. So bring your excitement. One technical thing to consider is upstaging. Be very careful that you arrange yourself so that you're both equal distance from the camera. If one is closer than the other, that forces a person to look all the way back to see the other person. And you don't want them to have to turn all that far. If you're at the same level, you only have to turn 3/4, which is a cheat, and the camera still sees most of your face. But if I have to look back at the person, then it's a terrible look. So don't upstage the person. Make sure you're at the same distance from the camera as each other. All right, you might already know this, but I need to make sure. Don't ever ask questions that are yes or no questions. Don't ask a question where the answer could be just one word. You're looking for open-ended questions. You want people to share their stories, share their dreams and their desires and their origin stories. Ask open-ended questions. How did you get into this? What is your dream? How did you invent this item? Those sort of questions can't be answered with one word, and they're going to give you a lot more place to go. If you ask questions that can be answered in one word, you're going to need 100 questions for your interview, and that's going to be ridiculous. One thing a lot of people ask is, where do I look while I'm doing an interview? You should look at the person when you ask their questions, for sure, because you need to have that connection with them. But mostly, if you're both on camera, mostly you want to be looking at the camera. So you'll look at the camera, you'll ask your question to the person, what do you think about blah, 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 and then you'll look at the camera as they talk, for the most part. And you can nod, you can smile, and you go back and look at them a little bit. But mostly, you look at the camera. Like the nutshell, what's your business, who do you help, and how do you do that?
Okay. Well, I help people that want to use their voice to make money. So that would be...
Here's something you should watch out for. When you ask a question, in a normal conversation, you say, mm-hmm, oh yeah, oh, me too. You jump in, you're not interfering, you're not stopping the other person from talking, but you make these little verbal, yes, I hear you and I agree sort of sounds. In your interviews, let's try not to do that. Just ask your question, let that person answer, and you can smile, you can nod, you can look like you're in agreement or disagreement, however you like, but don't keep interrupting. Especially with things like, oh, me too, or I thought about that once, or here's what I did in that situation. It's not your show. Well, I mean, it is your show, but it's not your interview. It's their interview. So let them talk and don't keep interrupting. All right, so those are some video tips on interviewing. I hope you find it very helpful. I definitely think you should go out and do an interview or two to see how that is. There are different types of interviews to do as well, but this was mostly about when you have an interviewee and you're both on camera and you're going back and forth between the camera and the person. Okay, so go do some interviews and we'll see how that looks. If you need more information or you want to find out how to do this better, how to do all your videos better, go to videoexpresstraining.com and see what we're up to.